I didn't sleep that night. How could I? Reva was urging me to rest, but I couldn't. I wouldn't. Not until I found her. I knew it was counterproductive, but that's the way you go when you feel like you've just failed every aspect of your life. There wasn't really much I could have done, even if I'd wanted to, though. I couldn't even go and crack heads out on the streets to see if anyone knew anything. I didn't know anyone here. It was infuriating. It made me feel even more useless than I already was. I felt powerless in a way I never had before, the means for retribution just outside my grasp. At least fear had been productive. Well, sort of. She hadn't slept either, not that she really needed it. She had followed Darcy's path from the club by hacking into the loose collection of surveillance cameras in the area around the club. She had made it a couple of blocks before a blur of motion sped her away, like a glitch in the feed. She simply disappeared. That was when the real work started. We had managed to get the access codes to the public surveillance cameras around the city. My first instinct was to call this into Rio and get her to start pulling strings. But, on second thought, that wouldn't be the best idea. Something Darcy had said before. When something like this happens to a cache and a department employee at that, all the hunters in the state would swarm. I had just enough pride left not to want word of this getting out just yet. This was my fuck up. I would fix it my way. I was getting her back alive. Besides, dozens of hunters running around half-cocked wasn't going to get us anywhere, and we didn't have a good reputation of working together as a team. What if he... Reva left the question unsaid. I shook my head as I paced up and down the balcony. The night had bled away to be replaced by the dawn. A red sun rose, and I tried not to take it as an omen. He wouldn't, I replied, with more conviction than I felt. She gave me a skeptical look. If you had just spent years in a maximum security prison, would you make it quick for the person who put you there? She conceded with a nod. Fair point. Still, she's probably not... I cut her off with a look. I'm not going to even consider it. I would find her, I would bring her home in one piece. Then I would be done with this work. I wasn't having this happen to me again and again. Another innocent whose blood would be on my hands. I would wash my hands clean of this whole business and move on with my life. Somewhere deep in the back of my mind, though, a voice taunted me, telling me I would never wash all the blood off, no matter how hard I tried. I ignored it. Now wasn't the time to start down that path. I could hate myself later. You'll always be a killer. Who am I kidding? It's all I'm good for. I stopped pacing the balcony and leant on the rail, looking out at the city. How could I have let this happen? I'm better than this. Or at least, I was. Reva put an arm around me, kissing me softly on the side of the head. How were you to know that he was able to get out of the cuffs? He knew a trick you'd never seen before. I shook my head. Fucking gin. Why couldn't they just stay in their fucking lamps? Reva frowned. Is that true? About the lamps? No, I sneered. Unfortunately, it's a myth, and they certainly don't grant wishes either. So where did it come from? I was thrown off my brooding by the odd line of questioning. What? Why does it matter? She shrugged. I was just wondering, not like we can do anything else right now. She was right. We were sitting tight until Fear uncovered a lead. Using her facial recognition software and scanning through every camera she could get into, she would turn up something eventually. I think it has something to do with the old desert tribes trying to trap them with magic wards. Jinn were basically the apex predator in that part of the world. I don't know where the lamp and witches shit comes from, though. Probably some old story that's been badly translated. Too bad we don't have one of those wards, she said vaguely as she leant back on the rail, staring up at the sky. A thought hit me. Wards? Of course. My retina lit from behind as I pulled up my comms menu to call Fear. Reva just looked confused. What? I just had a thought. Fuck, why didn't it occur to me before? What? I shook my head, hating myself for how damn slow I had been. Remember how Sierra used the spells in those little black books to suppress my powers with wards around the penthouse? She frowned. You think those books might have wards that can trap a djinn? I grimaced. No, but if there's a book that has that kind of info, I know exactly where it will be. I really wasn't looking forward to this call, but Darcy's life was in the balance and I wasn't going to risk it because of my personal rivalry. For a cipher, a manipulator of energy and by extension a natural technomancer, Tobias Blackwood didn't have any augmentations. Fia opened up a group call so she could still work and keep an eye on us two hotheads, as she put it. Due to Tobias not having any integrated tech, he answered over the cam on his desktop monitor. I was doing the same with a data slate, so we were all on a visual medium. Tobias grinned wide, showing off those perfect bloody teeth of his. Well, fuck me. How's it going, Whitlock? What do you want, a reading lesson? I ground my teeth and bit back a retort. Blackwood, if I wanted lessons in morality, can you two just cut the shit for 5 minutes? Fia cut in. Tobias, we lost the djinn and his target. I lost him, I interrupted. I should have put a fucking bullet in him when I had the chance. Tobias's smug smile faded. So, why didn't you? It doesn't matter. He sighed. Oh, fuck. Any leads? Both Fia and I shook our heads. His eyes lingered on me as a dejected look came over my face. I tried to ignore him. I'm trying to trace him now, Fia said. He looked genuinely worried. I'm guessing you're calling for help, but I'll tell you right now, I don't have anything worth tracking a djinn, half-blood or otherwise. Fia waved him off as I sat silent in my own self-resentment. That's not why we called, she said. So, what do you need then? Stories of djinn. Why do they talk about lamps? What's the deal with them? I know they aren't real, but I also know that the tribes in the Middle East used to trap them. You want to catch this guy with a magic circle. Not really in your wheelhouse there, is it, mate? He said, turning to me. Just tell us how they work, Blackwood. Tobias scratched the stubble on his chin and scrunched up his face in thought. Ah, shit. That takes me back away. Magic like that hasn't been used, even talked about, in hundreds of years. I think the lamp thing was a metaphor of some sort for contained potentiality or a mix-up with the language. The wishes thing, that's an adaptation of an older legend, that if you trap a djinn, they would be your servant. There's a story about a king who traps a djinn in a warded cave or something. Anyway, he makes the djinn swear to serve him as his bodyguard, then the djinn outlives the king, marries his daughter, they end up with a prince who's the first half-blood, I think. I interrupted him. Yeah, that's great, but the wards. He blinked twice. Oh yeah, right, sorry. Anyway, they are meant to trap them and make them mortal, or so the legend goes. I just don't know what that means. Maybe they make them age like a human, die faster. Maybe it negates their magic. Who knows? No one's seen anything like this for centuries. Is there any evidence of these wards being real? Fia asked desperately. He shrugged. Maybe. I don't know. I've never looked into it. So you're gonna have a look then? I pushed. In those dusty little books of yours? I knew he would. If there was one thing Tobias would fight tooth and nail for, it was protecting an innocent. Way to insult the merchandise there, mate, but yeah, sure. I can't promise anything though, but I'll do my best. He reached out to hit the button to hang up, then paused. Actually, oof, can we speak for a moment? His eyes flicked to one side of the screen where I knew he could see Fia on his end. Fia raised her eyebrows in surprise, then gave me a look that promised retribution if I didn't play nice before logging off. I was suspicious. I hadn't been alone with Tobias in a while, over a comm or otherwise, and he was acting civil. That worried me more than if he'd been a douchebag, to be honest. Alright, what do you want? He was being polite. The best I could manage was civil. Fia said you're going to chuck it all in. I shrugged. So, what's it to you? I would have thought you'd be pleased. He let out a long breath and rocked back on his stool. Give you a tip, Whitlock. Don't assume to know my thoughts. We aren't even on the same wavelength. Okay, I'm done. I went to hang up. He held out his hand, forestalling me. No, wait. I paused. Just answer me this. Why? Is it any of your business? Just answer the question and stop being so fucking cagey, eh? My impulse was to hang up on him again, but the sincerity in his voice stopped me. I lost my powers. I failed to protect people I should have. Shit, I can't even catch some out-of-practice hitman without an edge. I think it goes deeper than that, mate. You can dress it up in feelings of inadequacy all you want, but that's not the core issue here. I don't think I really give a shit what you think. He shrugged. That's fine. I'll leave you with this then. And listen well, because I'm only going to say it once. The world needs surgeons to cut away infections. I narrowed my eyes at him. He continued. Someone has to do it, and it's a fine line to walk. An honourable killer, I said sarcastically. Is it so ridiculous? I don't know if I have the resolve for that anymore, I replied solemnly. Violence just brings more violence. This is true, but just because you stop doesn't mean the bad guys will. He smiled at me. At the end of the day, we have to make peace with who we are. If you really feel like this isn't who you are, you think the world will be a better place with you behind a desk instead of a gun? Well, you do you. I would have thought you'd be happy to see me hang it all up. There's a difference between taking out murderers and taking out an innocent for the mission. I didn't reply to that. How could I? Take the course that lets you sleep at night. His hand reached out to the screen, aiming for the button to end the call. He paused once more, just for a moment. Oh, and if you're going to be trying to ward a magical creature, there's some things you're going to need. As I had said before, for someone who had used magic of their own, I hadn't really been used to magic. I certainly wasn't up to snuff when it came to glyphs and wards. That kind of magic was a whole other language mixed up with alchemy, and then you had to know whatever branch of magic you were trying to imprint on the wards. It was heady stuff. And to top it off, the orc behind the counter in the alchemy store could tell. He wasn't actually that big for an orc. He was about my height, more rotund than tall. He had curly hair, glasses, and a bored expression. I assumed he was the owner, as he was the only staff member in the shop and wearing a Hawaiian shirt with Santa surfing on it. Only the owner of a shop that didn't get used that much could get away with wearing that sort of clothing, especially given that it wasn't even December. Look, what's your name? I asked, trying to be polite despite my rush. He pointed to the front of the shop. Wallace. It's over the door. I looked back to the front of the shop. The neon purple lights in the glass above the door spelt Wallace's Arcane Supplies backwards from where I was standing. Good. Wallace, I need a few things, and I need them very quickly. He leant his chin on the palm of his upturned hand, his elbow resting on the counter, extending his other hand and beckoned with 2 fingers. I looked down, perplexed. He rolled his eyes. Your list. Show me the list. I blinked. It's on my HUD. He gave me a flat look. How am I meant to see the list if it's on your HUD? He sighed, reaching down and grabbing an NFC card from under the counter. Paper is perfectly acceptable, he muttered, handing me the card. But no, everything has to be tech. I transferred the list to the card. It was probably a good thing that he read it for himself. Tobias had said that the stuff I needed was very specific. His eyes lit from within, and I could see his pupils flick back and forth as he read. For some reason, the magic users out there, like this guy and Tobias, only got the minimum augmentations necessary, or none at all where they could. One could use tech and magic, but it really was a kind of us or them attitude most of the time. He tossed me the card, no longer needed, then got to his feet and pushed through the beaded curtain at his back, mumbling. You sure you want the gold-infused ichor? Copper is just as good, and it's cheaper. I frowned. Just as good? He grunted. More or less. I'll take the gold. I can't have it fail on me. I make this shit myself, I'll have you know. My solutions do not fail. He poked his head through the beads, his glasses slid to the end of his nose, and he gave me an offended look. They are perfect. I raised an eyebrow at him. If you were trying to trap a psychotic djinn, Would you trust the copper? Both his eyebrows shot up. Ah, gold it is then. He retreated back into the gloom. There was a wait as he collected the items I needed. I could hear boxes and other objects being shuffled around. Not from around here, are you? Or are you just new to this? I'm from over west, but yeah, I'm new to this. And you're gonna try binding circle. That's the plan. There was a chuckle. Hate to break it to you, but whoever told you that they have wards for binding a djinn is pulling your leg. None of that kind of knowledge has existed for an age. I trust my source, but thank you for your concern. Your funeral? He emerged from the beads a second time, holding a cardboard box full of paper bags and other smaller boxes. Okay, you got everything you need. I even threw in a few scribing styluses. It's a subsonic etcher. Better than painting this shit on. You can't wipe the wards away if they're imprinted in the stone or wood or whatever. I looked over the collection, not really knowing what I was looking at, but acting like I did. He watched me, his eyes peering at me over his glasses. I paused and looked up. You have no idea what you're doing, do you? I let my serious face fall away. That obvious? Another eye roll. I knew Tobias was going to fill me in on a lot of this, but it was handy to get the information firsthand with a demonstration on how to use this kind of kit. Wallace, despite his callous attitude, was clearly a very patient teacher. It took about an hour and a half, but he made sure I understood how and why things were working, not just a superficial understanding. I stand by the fact that this is all a waste of time. Your buddy, he has a snowball's chance in hell in finding those wards. Blackwood's a tosser, but if anyone has that info, it's in his shop. His eyes narrowed. He slumped back on his stool behind the counter. Blackwood. I nodded and picked up the box. Yeah, Tobias Blackwood. He seemed to consider the name, and I hope I hadn't just screwed things up for Tobias somehow. Well, some things have been found in stranger places. There was something unnerving about how he said that. I chose to give him a polite goodbye and make an exit. I was halfway back to the apartment in no time. I should have taken a Numa taxi, but I'd stupidly decided to walk. It was unseasonably warm too. The sun was just sitting past midday in the sky. I was just about to stop and buy a drink when Fia called. She had a lead. All thoughts of hydration forgotten, I listened holding my breath. The city's cameras had thrown up a probable match, a possible location. It wasn't a guarantee, but it was good enough. Religion had always passed me by, but I prayed to anyone who was listening that Darcy was still alive when I got there. I pushed open the door to the delivery bay of the abandoned warehouse that Fia had flagged as the potential location for Cyrus. There was no way of knowing if he was coming or going from any of the multiple entrances. He used his preternatural speed to come and go from the building. The only reason Fia got anything close to a lock on him was moving with Darcy had considerably slowed him down. Coming into the building the first time with her, we caught a blurred image of the fucker, holding a figure over his shoulder. Don't think me a fool. I wasn't just going to barge in. I had a plan. Well, how many times have I said that to date? But I did. Her life was on the line. This time, we were not at home to Mr. Fuck-Up. I had scouted the area first. It looked completely neglected, but for the dim glow of white light deep in the bowels of the structure, just discernible in the fading light of day, somebody was in there. I had taken my time, finding an appropriate entrance, something that was direct. I took my time looking for booby traps. I took my time preparing. I moved through the building, silently and slowly. I took care to check around every corner, look in every room before I passed it. Without my other sight, I had to manually check every room. If this was going to be the new norm, I was getting night vision installed, at the department's expense, of course. So far, there was no signs of life, no signs of any movement. Even the dust on the floor was untouched in this area. As I went deeper into the warehouse, my pulse increased. What I was about to do relied heavily on my assumptions from my interactions with Cyrus at the club, and some research into his files. his previous cases. I was putting a lot of money on a psychological profile here. Finally, I made it to the hallway that led downwards into the point of light at the centre of the whole structure. This place had seen movement. The dust was all brushed up against the walls as though some strong breeze had swept through the space, blowing anything light to the sides. I gripped a knife in my left hand, pistol in my right. Right hand supported by the left, blade down, gun up. The closer I got to the light, the more my senses picked up. Sounds of a generator humming, the light airy noise of a fan, the smell of blood, and worse. I set my jaw as I approached the doorway. A door hung from one bottom hinge collapsed to the floor and barely holding onto the frame. I moved around it cautiously, glancing down at it for a moment as to not trip over, then back up to the room ahead, taking in the sight, all my fears coming crashing in at me all at once. A petite blonde figure tied to a chair, hands bound to the armrests, feet bound to the legs. Blood covered her clothes. Her hair was matted with it. Cuts ran up and down any exposed flesh. Bruises blossomed on her face. Time dragged out for the longest seconds of my life, and I held my breath, waiting for her to take one of her own. Your mind goes 1,000,000 miles an hour when reality slows down. The words, "Please be alive," repeating on a loop in my head. I took another step, my foot crunching on some loose detritus. My eyes didn't leave her face. Then, as though the sound had been a switch, her body shuddered. Her shoulders lifted the smallest fraction, and she drew a breath. It was short, but it was enough. He hadn't beaten her to death. He had just left her with enough life to string this out. My impulse was to rush in, throw caution to the wind and cut her free and run for it. I didn't. I took it slow, watching every shadow. I kept my eyes on every dark corner of the room, darting to the smallest movements. When I finally reached the chair, I only tore my eyes away from our surroundings long enough to cut each rope one at a time. She slumped forward as I cut the one that bound her around the chest to the back of the chair. I put an arm around her to catch her, slipping my knife into the sheath at my hip, then squatting down to look into her eyes. Her lids flickered slightly, her eyes refusing to focus, a dazed expression on her face. It was to be expected. I slid one arm under her shoulder and lifted her from the seat. I could feel her hand groping at my clothes, looking for something to hold onto to give her balance. I practically dragged her to her feet. She groaned. I could hear her breath picking up and her limbs twitched into action on autopilot as we started to limp towards the exit. She wasn't exactly heavy, but she was going slow. It was awkward. We got a few meters down the hallway I had entered by when I stopped all of a sudden. I had heard something just on the edge of perception. A crunch far off in another room. I looked behind me, my heart rate building further. I missed being able to see through walls. Another sound brought me back to Darcy, a small sound, the muttering of words. I looked into her eyes again, still unfocused, but her lips barely moved. She tried to form words. I leant down, leaning in, putting my ear close to her mouth. "He's..." She was weak, barely conscious. "He's what?" I whispered back under my breath. She cut off, starting to cough, more blood splattering her lips as she did so. A whistle cut through the silence of the empty warehouse. It was crisp, it was sharp, it was piercing. If I'm being honest, it sent a shiver down my spine. "He's coming." I hefted her back onto my shoulder, taking all her weight. We picked up speed, more noises each time, getting closer but shifting rapidly between different areas of the building. He knew I was here. He was toying with me, trying to put me on edge. We made it through a series of switchbacks between workshops, moving towards the loading bay I had entered by. I had to stop again as Darcy's coughing fit peaked. She spat the pink mixture of saliva and blood onto the floor, her eyes starting to show some level of awareness. Lazily, they pivoted towards me. One slow blink. "He'll wait until..." She broke off as more coughs took hold. A small voice in my head said, "Punctured lung, slow bleeding, requires immediate attention." If I left her here much longer, she would have drowned her own blood, probably by morning. He'll stop us right as we're about to get free, she managed. I pulled her close and threw all my strength into our escape. I'm counting on it. It was obviously going to take us longer to exit as it had taken me to enter. But suddenly, there was a crashing sound from not far back, just behind us, a couple of rooms. Then a voice rang out, playful, psychotic. "How's it feel, Hunter, to be the prey for a change?" I didn't reply, saving my energy. More sporadic movement from behind. "You should have come for me first, Hunter. Put a bullet in me while I slept." I continued to follow my own footsteps in the dust, leading back the way I had come. "How deep does that fear run, Hunter?" The next sound came from far off to our left. I resisted the urge to spin and point my gun down the dark hallway. I didn't fear being gunned down. He liked to play with his food. He liked to take it slow. He liked his bare hands. "I'll tell you what, Hunter. I'll do you the favor. I'll let you choose if she lives or dies. Kill her now, and I'll let you live. You can't say fairer than that." We continued to struggle, his voice closer again just in the next room over. "Go on, pull the trigger." I brought my gun up, aiming through the wall at the voice. I let 3 rounds fly. He laughed loud and clear. "Very good, Hunter, but not fast enough." He had shifted to the other side of us somehow. "You'll have to do better than that. Or you could just put the bitch down now." 2 more rounds through the wall to my right. Darcy winced. Keep talking, I hissed through gritted teeth. "You should thank me, Hunter. I'm trying to help you. You just need to take one life to remember how good it feels. Or are you too broken?" I felt my skin crawl. The way he talked. It wasn't that he was wrong, it was that so often, he would have been right. We finally broke out into the red light of the setting sun, the musty halls and rooms of that suffocating place at our backs. Ahead of us, the gap in the tall grey walls through which trucks would have reversed to deliver goods. The other side of that, our salvation. I hopped down off the concrete ledge, catching Darcy as she fell forward. Just as I straightened my back under her weight, a blow caught me across the back of my head. It wasn't so hard as to knock me out, but I did see stars. Another blow across the back of the head from the other direction. I dropped Darcy, stumbling forward. "You lack fortitude, Hunter. I'll show you what it takes. You can watch as I finish her off." Cyrus shimmered as he slowed down to a speed I could actually make out. He was breathing hard, but he didn't look like he was even halfway spent, the magic inherent in his blood supporting his system against the strains of the speed that he was pushing. "You still have a few shots in that cannon. Go on. I'll let you have one for free." I raised my gun and fired 2 more rounds, tracking him as he ran in short bursts around us, ending up back on the concrete loading dock. I kept my gun trained on him as I grabbed Darcy and began to pull her towards the opening. He hopped down slowly, laughing as I struggled with her limp form. "Pathetic." He shot forward, closing the distance, so close I could smell his breath. "You've lost that edge, boy." He jumped back as I let off another shot, continuing that damn laughter. I just made it to the entrance, past the narrow choke point. The sheer grey walls of formed cement either side of us flared to a wide opening beyond. I looked up. Cyrus was just standing there, a psychotic grin on his face, his hands balled into fists. "End of the line, Hunter." He started forward, at a jog, at first, before bursting into full speed. I closed my eyes and gritted my teeth, ready for the impact, expecting at any moment to feel the full force of one of those fists against my jaw. Instead, there was a soft thud. I opened my eyes to see Cyrus pressed up against an invisible wall. Blood trickled from his nose where he'd collided with the unseen barricade. He hadn't hit at full speed. That had been stripped away from him as he entered the circle. He had still been moving at a dead run, though. One of his hands reached up and touched the magical barrier. He snarled and hammered his fist on it. Then he turned to exit the way he had come. He found he was surrounded on all sides. My eyes went down to the dirty and scarred concrete floor, encircling him in 2 concentric rings. In between the 2 were intertwining assembled wards. They glowed purple in the fading light. "What the hell is this?" He hammered on the wall again, emphasizing the words with strokes of his hands. What bullshit! He got even more enraged with every blow. I let him punch it out, run at it, claw the ground. Reva walked from around the corner of the entrance, the box of supplies under her arm. She set it down and I handed Darcy off to her. Call a Numiko cab. Get her to a hospital. No, you will not take her from me. No! I ignored him. Rio will give you all her med details. Just quote them at the front desk. They'll give her the best possible care. All department employees had top-notch medical care. It was one of the best parts of the job. Reva looked to Cyrus. Is he secure? I nodded and slumped against the wall. He ain't going nowhere. She looked back at me. Are you okay? I gave her a thumbs up. I'm fine, babe. Go. I'll stay here and keep an eye on him until the cops get here. She gave me a kiss, then took off carrying Darcy in her arms, with the assisted speed of her Hermes to get her to the road and a cab as quick as possible. I slid to the ground and pushed my hair out of my eyes. I could just make out Cyrus panting, staring after Darcy, defeat and fury on his face. I began to roll up my sleeves. You know, I said quietly, I really should thank you. You've been giving me lots to think about. He tilted his gaze down to regard me, eyes filled with hate. I'll kill you, and her, and that green-skinned bitch. I cut him off. Please shut the fuck up. I need to get a few things off my chest. Go fuck yourself. I pointed my gun at his feet and took a chip out of the cement with a single shot. He froze and went silent. You see, I continued, I've been hating myself, hating who I am. I've been looking down on myself because I thought I was no good for anything else, that I had no value beyond being a killer. On top of that, for so long, I felt ashamed of it. I shook my head, getting to my feet. When Hercule died of my watch, sure, that uncovered some deep issues. My old squad mates, my mother. I sighed and got to my feet, pushing off the wall and starting to pace. But that wasn't the real issue here. If I'm just a killer without any powers, what do I do now? I gave him a weak smile. I'll be honest, I do enjoy my work. Not because I'm a nutjob like you. I'm not bloodthirsty, I just enjoy justice. Taking a stand against people who threaten innocent, who threaten the weak, who can't defend themselves. People that need protecting. I started to move around the circle, not looking at him as I spoke, just thinking out loud. He stayed still, feet planted to the ground, moving his head to keep track of me. Why should I care? His voice was calmer now. Because you're the reason I've come to this conclusion. You, and my father, and that wanker in his bookshop, the last one did rankle a little. He was right. Someone needs to pull the trigger. The world needs someone willing to get their hands dirty, so everyone else can stay innocent. Or we leave it open to animals like you. I looked down at the pistol in my hand. He started to actually look worried as I circled him. I'm worth more to you alive, Whitlock, he stammered. I shrugged. It's not about the money. I'll go quiet, I can pay. I cut him off again. I didn't send them away because I'm gonna shoot you, I said calmly. I tossed the gun to the side, pulled my knife from my belt and tossed it in the box. I stepped into the ring of light. I sent them away because this is something that needs doing. I smiled at him, every bit of menace, every bit of anger, every bit of grief. All my frustration and fear. And because I'm going to enjoy it. I stepped out of the ring of light. They had worked just as Tobias had planned. They weren't a permanent fixture. They would burn out eventually, leaving nothing but scorched, unreadable marks on the ground if they weren't reinscribed every hour. Potent magic like that needed fuel, and I only had so much to give it with the kit Wallace had sold me. I wiped my hands clean of blood on my jacket that lay on the cardboard box. Behind me, I could hear the gargled and laboured breathing of Cyrus, where he lay on the now wet and mottled grey and blue slate. Turns out, when his magic was negated, he wasn't so tough. He had got a few good hits in, though. I'd be sore and lumpy for a week or two, but nothing that wouldn't heal. I reached down and picked my gun up, popping the mag to see how many rounds I had left, then looked back at Cyrus. His eyes followed me. I hoped I would see fear there, or hope, or something to make me pity him. All I saw was rage, never ending. "You wouldn't," he said with half breaths, blood trickling from his mouth. "You're an animal, Cyrus. I've seen what you do left to your own devices. Men, women, children. You deserve no less." "In cold?" He stopped, coughing a lung up. "I've done worse." "I was right. You're no better than me." I tipped back my head and looked up at the neon-lit skyline, the city on the horizon. It might be full of the corrupt and hedonistic, the vicious and twisted, but there would be one less of them tonight, and I could sleep well with that thought. "Of course I'm better than you." His mouth opened in a soundless question. "How?" I slid the mag home and sighted on his forehead. "I'm still breathing." Thank you very much for listening to Cyphers Edge. If you enjoy this podcast, a subscription to the channel will be most appreciated. If you'd like more content from me, you can find me on various social media platforms. I also have a Discord. It's a small community, but we'd love to see you there to talk about the genre and any other topics that relate to the podcast, literature, or sci-fi and cyberpunk. As always, the script and narration were done by Brandis, myself, and the music was done by Cale McLeish. Copyright Cyphers Edge 2026.